What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the Entertainment Room. Today, I'm actually going to be reviewing a pretty new film, for once. The film I'm reviewing today is No One Will Save You, directed by Brian Duffield, who is known for work such as Love and Monsters, Underwater, Insurgent, and The Babysitter. The story follows Bryn, an anxious young woman who mainly stays to herself at her little home in the woods, and her home is invaded by aliens. Okay, so new films in theaters with my current situation are kind of tough to make due to my full-time job and other life responsibilities. But I do have more downtime to stream films, such as this one. I try and take advantage of my situation the best that I can by reviewing films that are still fun. Maybe they're still super popular, or maybe I'm reviewing them because they've been kind of forgotten over time, as far as I can see. But since I was able to watch this new one on Hulu, I am super excited to review it fairly early on. Maybe about a little over a week late by the time this is released. So, No One Will Save You. Let's just get straight into it. So I was incredibly excited when I saw a short trailer for this film, and I believe that was also only about a couple weeks ago that I saw it for the first time. I love alien films and outer space films in general. The first Alien from 1979 is definitely a top 10 horror film for me, probably even top 5 sci-fi as well. An underrated film that I love, even in its simplicity, is The McPherson Tape, which was remade later as Alien Abduction, Incident in Lake County. Films based off a hoax, which is gimmicky, sure. But there's something really unnerving about the home video in this film, plus the setup combined with the creepy encounters with the aliens. Those films also showed the aliens only every so often, making it creepier when they actually were on screen, particularly in the final act. A lot of classic horror films, particularly alien films, were really great about building suspense and slowly bringing the extraterrestrial villain to life, thus making a larger impact on your memory when you view those iconic scenes. Going off of that, there were several things I enjoyed about No One Will Save You, but one of my least favorite decisions this film made was how often you see the aliens on screen. It was way too much for me. Now don't get me wrong, there are some incredibly effective scenes here, and the sound design was fantastic. The classic gray alien look, as it is, I didn't mind, honestly. Instead of cheap or lazy, I felt a sense of nostalgia towards it. But when the aliens were shown as often as they were, it kinda just came off a bit silly and overdone as time went on, and it really tamed the impact of the scares. Even though this film is new, a lot of people have seen it, so I will go into a few other things before spoilers. But before I do that, for starters, Kaitlyn Dever as a lead was a phenomenal choice, in my opinion. I've admired her for her acting ability, and she really delivers here. She goes through various emotions, especially anxiety, and acting those emotions out can land horribly if you're not careful and not as talented, I would say. Overacting is an easy possibility, but here it all felt very natural and effortless for the most part, even though I know it definitely wasn't. Also, I'll take an L on this next thing for observation skills. I didn't even really notice until after the film was over that there's almost no dialogue at all in this film. It really didn't even stand out to me until later. It is odd that I didn't notice it, for sure. I'll take that. But for me, I see the lack of dialogue as impressive for how they move the story along without it. While the ending is kind of up in the air as far as its exact meaning, the surface level story is still really easy to follow, and Dever's performance in particular makes this work very well. The pacing is also pretty quick overall. An hour and a half flows by well, in my opinion. People do seem to have issues with certain aspects of the film, particularly the third act, which does take an emotional turn that I wasn't expecting. I have been thinking about this film pretty consistently since my viewing of it. I do wonder if I would have preferred a more straightforward alien abduction film where Bryn runs away and fights aliens the entire time and maybe she wins. Maybe she just gets abducted at the end. Classic straight-laced home invasion films still have their place, if done properly, but it has gotten difficult to have an installment to really stand out as unique or scary in that way. So that basic series of events would have needed to have something special along with it. At the end of the day, though, this film is flawed for sure, but I liked what they tried to do with the ending, personally. I was invested in Bryn's mysterious past. The final act is a bit cliched in its design and how they write it, just kind of how it plays out. But it still works in many ways for me, too. I'll get into that a little more in the spoiler section. As a matter of fact, I will begin spoilers now. So if you haven't seen this film yet, you may be upset by the time it rolls around to the final act. Maybe you won't. This is still an overall fun little film to watch. On to spoilers. I'll start with how the aliens look, their design. Gray bodies, black eyes, cool. To many, though, this comes across as boring, it seems. Especially seeing them move about so much, it does kind of feel like overkill. Seeing them run also was kind of goofy. Many of them had these really long legs and arms, but such like a awkward, narrow stride. And it was just not a good intro to seeing the aliens on the screen for the first time. The slight modification with the one alien with the incredibly long legs and long arms, that was a simple change. It actually looked pretty damn cool, if I'm being honest. Especially the shot outside where Bryn is running away from that alien, and you see it rapidly closing in and destroying everything in its path. What didn't work as much for me was the really short alien with long arms. It kind of reminded me of almost like a Scrappy-Doo type alien with its mannerisms and its look. An alien that's more impulsive, more vocal than the rest of the group. It rarely landed as scary, at least until its final scene before Bryn stabs it with the broom handle. When she's slowly closing the door to, I think it was the bathroom, and as it's closing you see that the alien goes from sitting on the floor silently to slowly swinging off of something down the hall, and then abruptly rips into the door. I like that sequence a lot actually, but that's about it as far as that encounter goes. The worst shot to me though was when Bryn killed the original intruding alien with a model building from her town she was building in her home. The sequence was fine, but then there was a frame of the alien with the model sticking out of its head, and the alien just honestly looked comically befuddled. And I don't know, its mouth was hanging open, it's like opening, partially closing, opening again. I think its eyes may have been twitching as well, if I remember correctly. It just came across as such a goofy shot. I did not understand the directing in that case. It's just not a scary shot at all. I didn't understand the logic or the decision making there. Aside from the model house sticking out the side of its head, it really looked like an odd, awkward cartoon shot is the best way that I can think to describe it. It just took me out of the moment completely. But away from the design for a minute, Deaver's character, Bryn, was mysterious in a good way. As you unfold more about her, what made her so anxious, why she hyperventilates all the time going into the town. Everyone stares at her, and she even comes face to face with a police chief, and who I'm guessing is his wife, who she was trying to avoid, and she just simply gets spit on. They don't say shit to each other. The lady spits on her, and then they go about their business. She keeps attempting also to write letters to someone named Maud. You're unsure whether she is a sympathetic character or not until the very end, and then, well, I guess that could still be up in the air, depending on how you view her situation. But I was invested in her character overall. She does make some dumb decisions here and there, mostly in the initial attack. She, for instance, moves too quickly and too loudly sometimes, either to shut a door or shut a window, when the threatening alien literally just exited moments ago. Mostly stuff like that. I don't know if this next moment was meant to be funny or not, but she exits her room somewhere in the middle of the initial attack and is just holding like this tiny curling iron as a weapon. I just laughed at that. Don't know if I was supposed to, but that was there. But back to the scares. The more subtle moments of the movie, where the aliens were present but not shown in their total form, really have the largest impact. Either whether it's a head peeking down at her from the roof, an alien trying to look at her in the reflection of an appliance, also hearing but not seeing the quick footsteps from the alien that's charging at her or charging at the room it thinks she's in. Also the different droning, croaking, clicking, all the vibrations, just all the noises the aliens made. They were just really well done, in my opinion. Something I wanted a little more of, though, was maybe the townspeople being invaded or taken over. Mannerisms and behaviors aren't anything new from the humans who are being, I guess, possessed, however you want to put it. But the noises they made and the movements were incredibly effective, I think. I love the bus scene in particular, with the man and the woman trying to grab her and take her over for the first time, indicating that after less than 24 hours, many of the other people around have also been affected by these visitors. The people were almost creepier than aliens in a way. I'm not sure for the director and the writer's purposes that squeezing in an extra scene with the townspeople would have worked out that well, but I would have almost enjoyed seeing a scene with Brynn fighting off some townspeople, especially in her home. I think that would have made for some pretty creepy moments to get a kind of a break also from, the basic gray aliens we see so much. Another thing I enjoyed was the classic beam of light that comes from the spaceship when it wants to pick something up. Just the spontaneous timing worked out nicely. Still unsure what the purpose of the alien invasion was. They seem to be simply trying to take over the humans and take over this new planet. But they also seem to be studying the humans as well, or at least as we can see Brynn. In a couple scenes, the aliens are searching for Brynn, but then they are easily distracted by her pictures of her and Maud and the letters that she has written to her or tried to write to her. There are also moments where they don't grab her initially. They just kind of stare and look at her quizzically. By the end, I'll try and say my piece on what I think the film is trying to say or what the meaning of the ending is. But it's very likely I'll be missing some things or could simply be, wrong altogether. So it is what it is. But they attempt to infect Brynn, I guess is the word. She sees Maud, it appears, when she is infected. And then she says, "I'm sorry, Maud. I'm sorry." And these are the only 5 words spoken the entire film. Maud smiles, but then screams when Brynn pulls out the creature used to try and infect her. This ends the vision she was having. She also has to kill an exact replica of herself after the double stabs her in the stomach. I know I'm not having all the meanings most likely correct in my head with these two scenes, with her vision and then her killing her double. But of course, there's an obvious theme of grief and guilt and trying to get over those two things. As is revealed that she has been shunned basically from the townspeople because she accidentally killed her friend Maud when they were 12. So they had an argument, Brynn was shoved to the ground, and she gets angry and retaliates in the heat of the moment by grabbing a rock near her and strikes Maud in the head, accidentally killing her. The police chief and the woman that we saw be so hostile towards her is revealed to be Maud's parents. Once she's on the ship, they probe her, not in the hilarious way that everyone likes to joke about, but she relives the memory of that night. And then after she relives that horrible memory, she sits in a chair across from a younger Brynn, who is struggling to write the first letter to Maud. I guess just kind of journaling, trying to think out her thoughts, her emotions, see if she can find some kind of closure. Both look overwhelmed at first, but the grown-up Bryn then takes the younger Bryn's hand. They look at each other and smile and kind of relax. Bryn is studied by the aliens during this moment and is actually lured back to the Earth. But before the final scene, up to this point, I feel this is a little more on the nose, with Bryn finally facing her trauma, and ultimately it feels like she also forgives herself, even when nobody else would. That's something she has struggled with for a long time. But the title of the film also, No One Will Save You, sounds simply like an ominous, isolated threat from her home in the woods being invaded while she is alone. But also, I feel like it likely could mean that, none of the townspeople will likely help her or try and save her, even if they could, due to her actions in the past. She has been on her own since the incident, and nothing seems to be changing that. Nothing probably will change that. Going back to an earlier scene, a complaint I also saw was Bryn not following through with reporting the encounter she had at her home after she was spat on. This didn't bother me really. I mean, let's be real. First off, no one seems to have forgiven her for what she did years ago when she was a child. Not only will they likely not care about her home invasion story, period, they definitely would probably laugh at her or be annoyed if she started talking about, a gray creature being on the hallway floor. And likely by the time they got back to her house, the alien would be gone, or the situation would have just been handled all wrong anyway. I don't know, just different reasons I can see her mental block in needing to flee that situation, especially after such a traumatic encounter with Maud's parents. Sure, I would have likely have tried to say something, to kind of maybe clear my conscience for the future in case things get worse, especially knowing that I'd have to go home alone after this. But I think I can at least partly feel where she's coming from at the end of the day. But of course, that's going to be subjective either way. She appears to have been spared by this decision to forgive herself, or at least that's what I'm guessing it is. And the final scene after this is also ambiguous to a certain extent. Bryn is happy finally, completely. And in almost a picture-perfect world, everyone in the town smiles and waves at her, but they do it in like this creepy unison kind of fashion. And a party actually is starting, and she dances with a man and a woman, kind of going back and forth between the two. She comes up to the camera and smiles into it before going back and joining the party again. And then the camera pans up to reveal several spaceships resting in the sky, what is, I'm guessing, still Earth. So, my guess is maybe, again, could be fucking up here. My guess is Bryn is maybe rewarded for her character and her decision, and is given this blissful world to live in where she is, respected for once. And it's possible the aliens are still infiltrating the minds of the townspeople to be nice to her and to give her a good life. I'm unsure still if Bryn is, infiltrated at all or not in her mind, or if she was left alone. My guess is going to be that they left her as she was, but I really couldn't say for certain. I do believe she is alive and on Earth still. It's uncertain as to the exact purpose of the invasion by the end of everything, but maybe it's simply to, of course, conquer this new world, but also to study and kind of manipulate the world as they see fit. I don't know. I tried. But I think at least part of that was the idea they were going for, and people will have a lot of interpretations. Please let me know what you guys think and what you got out of it. The beauty of film, books, whatever, is people will draw different interpretations, and a lot of them work really well either way. But a lot of people will be annoyed by this twist, whether it makes sense to them or not. And again, it is a bit cliched in how it's written, maybe. A little Lifetime channel-esque is how I kind of thought it through later on. But I like in general how they handled these themes. But that's just me. I'm going to give No One Will Save You a 6.7 out of 10. I would watch it again, maybe sometime down the road after a year or two. It is disappointing in many ways, mostly with how they handled the scares and how often, again, the aliens were on screen. There are also several strong points to it, different things that I've loved. The Alien Home Invasion combo is still really thrilling to me, even if it wasn't handled with the utmost care this time. But I'm eager to read more and more discussions on this film, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think of the film, and I'll see you guys next time on the Entertainment Room.